Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my channel.
So what does it feel like to be a world champion?
Amazing, sir. But so many people want to touch the trophy.
Actually, I wanted to check if I can...
Of course, sir, you can touch. Vivan, please.
Touch? मेरे पास 5 है. Do you want to touch 4 more?
Nice flex, sir.
Learning from you, King E5 and all.
Sir, मुझे लगता है everyone should get their iconic moments synced.
नहीं यार, मेरे दोनों हाथ भर जाएंगे.
सर पैर भी.
Correct.
तो किसका मैनेजर है?
Sorry.
See, Gukesh, to connect with today's kids, I need your help with all this Gen Z lingo, like kabaddi and all.
It's Skibidi.
Scooby-Doo?
Sure. Sir, nobody can teach this, especially to someone of your age. Stature. Sir, the thing is, you need to know pop culture.
I know Michael Jackson.
Ow!
Oh! Sorry, sir.
Actually, आप forward by Myntra से Gen Z कपड़े खरीद लो. If not the lingo, the kids will connect with your drip at least.
Trip?
It means style, sir.
This video features two Indian chess world champions. One is from the past, and one is the reigning world champion. In a fun and engaging commercial they are. Now, their witty banter and humor make it truly enjoyable to watch. It's yet another testament to India's strong commitment to chess. I can't help but compare this to how things were handled in our country when Dean Liren won the world championship. It was as if nothing had happened. Most of the people didn't know. Besides us who play chess, others don't know. And honestly, it was so disappointing. Now, I completely agree with some people's, including Hikaru Nakamura's statement that having an Indian player become world champion could significantly boost the development of chess worldwide. Because in their country, they support chess they have the biggest support comparing to all the other countries. The government support, the residents all support chess. On top of that, I recently saw some news from India that Gukesh was awarded a highly prestigious national honor. And this is truly commendable and inspiring. Gukesh has received recognition that is hard to imagine for players from other countries. Such honors are undoubtedly unique and special. Now, as we look ahead to 2025, we have one of this year's most significant event, and it is the 2025 Tata Steel Chess Masters. Gukesh is once again competing. Now, besides Gukesh, there are also many other strong players, like as we can see here, Fabiano Caruana, Arjun Nirgizi, we have Gukesh, Nurdirbek Abdusattorov, Wei Yi, and many, many more. Now, there are actually, all of these players. I think that is 14 players. And we have 14 players in the Masters section, but they're all really, really strong players. And also, we have the world champion. So, of course, it's not easy. None of the games are easy to play. And here, looking back at the 2024 Tata Steel Tournament, where Gukesh also participated, he narrowly missed the title after losing in the tiebreaks to Chinese Super Grandmaster Wei Yi. We're all eager to see how this year will unfold. So let's wait and see what will happen at the very end. Now, at the time I'm recording this video, this tournament has already started for 2 rounds. And here today, I am going to bring you guys a very exciting game. And it is in the first round, where Gukesh, with the white pieces, is playing against Anish Giri. Now, Anish Giri, if some of you guys don't know, is a very strong grandmaster as well from France. And you just have to know that he is really, really strong. And he also has a lot of super tournament experiences. Well, for Gukesh, since he is much younger than Giri is, so he has less experiences, but it doesn't really matter because he is also a really strong player. And today, let's take a look at round 1 and see how Gukesh started off his whole tournament. Oh, sorry, I got a little bit coughing. But anyways, now Gukesh with the white pieces starts with knight f3, knight f6, and here we have g3, so fianchettoing his bishop, d5, bishop g2, c5, short castle, and this actually turns into what we call the King's Indian attack. Be sure that you don't hear it. It's not the King's Indian defense, as we know, where it was like this. Like we have d4, knight f6, and then g6, knight c3. This is the main line, one of the main lines. This is what actually happens in the King's Indian defense. But as played in the game, we have this setup where white is actually playing like the exact same setup that black usually does in the King's Indian defense, and that's why we call it the King's Indian attack, because it's like the opposite. Now here, white basically has two options, either to go d3, which just simply looks exactly the same as the King's Indian defense, but also white has this more aggressive play to play d4. Now in the game, Gukesh decided to play d4, and now in the game, Giri played e6. Well, of course, he can also take on d4, which is possible, but then allowing black to play e5, black will have a really strong big black center, and probably white is going to start breaking through on the side with c4. Now, this is also one of the main lines where here white simply goes, for example, like knight c3, and it's really normal. In the game, e6 was played. Now, this move, the good thing about this move is that it opens up this diagonal for the dark square bishop, but on the other hand, it blockades black's own light square bishop, which means that it can only develop this way, d7, and then out, instead of just developing in one move. Also, a possible idea would be to fianchetto this bishop in the future at some point. Now here, Gukesh decided to play c4, which is kind of aggressive because here he can also just try to fianchetto his other bishop with b3, or even just develop his bishop, but nonetheless, c4 is one of the main lines as well. Here we have d takes c4, and queen a4 was played, winning back the c4 pawn immediately. Bishop d7. Here, instead of taking on c4, which would have been better, Gukesh instead played d takes c5. But then this is not as good as queen takes c4, because if we take first, we wait for black to take on d4, and then here we take. And the main difference is that here, white is slightly faster in development and not allowing black to develop any of the pieces. Maybe rook c8 is possible, probably there are no clear discovered attacks, so we can just simply play knight c3. And now the main problem is that if you take on c5 immediately, that is played in the game, now black can actually play bishop takes c5, and if you take on c4 now, you see that the main difference is that white, instead of the knight being on d4, it's on f3, and black also had this bishop developed, so black is somehow doing better than queen takes c4 immediately. So d takes c5 is at some point not as accurate as queen takes c4, but it's not like a big deal. In the game, bishop e7 was played, retreating the bishop back, knight c3, short castle, e4, rook c8, queen e2 back, bishop c5, bishop g5, pinning the knight and the queen, threatening some tricky e5 ideas. And here, h6 was played. Now, h6 is the only move here that black has in order to stay equalized, because all the other moves probably will have to go back with bishop e7 to stop the bishop from pinning, but then you'll just somehow be wasting a tempo. So here, Giri played h6, which is very accurate. And here, the best move for Gukesh, well here Gukesh made his first mistake. The best move I can tell you is actually to take on f6, even though you're giving up the bishop pair, but after queen takes f6, you have e5 now. And you're gaining a tempo, but also on the very next move, you have knight e4 attacking the bishop, and also this knight can jump to d6 at some point. The d7 bishop, even though black has the bishop pair, but the d7 bishop is a really passive bishop. And even if it gets out to this diagonal, white will be able to trade it off with his own bishop at some point. So bishop f6 is the best move here. You can also retreat it back to f4 or e3, for example, but not what was played in the game, which is bishop h4, but now simply allowing black to play g5. And of course, Gukesh definitely calculated all of these things because he wouldn't just let his bishop get trapped here on h4 if he hadn't seen, if he hadn't seen g5. So here, he definitely saw g5, and then he just simply took it with knight g5. Takes. Now he is down a piece but up 2 pawns and somehow damaging black's pawn structure in front of the king. But it's not entirely sure that this is working. Now after bishop g5 here, Giri played this really nice move, e5. Now, even though e5 is opening up this d5 square for the knight, but also black gains more control of the d4 square, prevents white from pushing e5, also opens up this diagonal for the light square bishop, activating all of the pieces. So actually here, black is doing much better than white is. But Gukesh, of course, still found some counterplay. He first played queen d2. His idea is to first of all get away from knight d4, which is a tempo. Then also, at some point, bishop h6, queen g5 ideas might be happening, putting some pressure on the d7 bishop, threatening to take on f6 actually, if black doesn't defend the d7 bishop. So queen d2 is actually really tricky. But in the game, bishop e7 was played, which is really positional, because here for black can also just simply play knight d4, which is more aggressive. Knight d4 blockading the queen. Also, this knight is on a really nice outpost here. Knight d5 won't work because of bishop e7. Black will be able to save the knight. But what was played in the game, bishop e7, is not bad. And here, bishop h6 was played, threatening some queen g5 ideas. And here, Giri, of course, white is attacking the rook right now, and for some of you guys, you just might blitz the move out, rook e8, and I just saved the rook. But then, queen g5, here, no matter where you go, queen g7, boom, checkmate. So sometimes, even though your opponent, you see that your opponent is attacking your pieces, but running away is not always your first idea. Your first idea should always be, okay, so besides attacking my pieces, what other more important threats are my opponent threatening? And if none, do I have other options instead of just running away? Can I just re-attack him, attack his other pieces, his other more important pieces, or find some tactics to win his pieces? And if nothing, then you just run away with the piece to a safe square. And here, white is attacking the rook, but black doesn't need to defend it because black is up a minor piece, you should know. And here in the game, Giri, he knows that queen g5 is coming, and he couldn't really go knight h7 because then after takes, this is not the best outcome that black has. Instead, he found this brilliant pass move, king h7. Now, here, of course, in the game, white took on f8. The main problem is that queen g5 no longer works because there's rook g8 coming to defend queen g7 mate. So king h7 actually not only runs away from this queen g5 check, but also, if white doesn't take, allows the rook to come to the g file, which means that white definitely will take on f8. And here, I want you guys to pause and think. Which piece would you use to take this bishop? Take with the bishop or take with the queen? Now, in the game, not Gukesh, but Anish, he played the worst move. Instead of taking with the best piece here, which is to take with the queen, taking with the queen is better because it runs away from this pin, also allowing the queen to come to this side. And actually, you should know that at this point of the game, for black, if you trade off the queen successfully, it is going to be really good for you because you have the bishop pair. Also, white is up 2 pawns, that is for sure. Well, white is up 2 pawns, but black is, black is just up 2 minor pieces, basically. And black has a bishop pair. Also, like, his knights are really strong once it goes to d4. Also, the knight attacks e4. So, like, black has compensation for the lost material. But, however, in the game, instead of taking on f8 with the queen, he instead played bishop takes f8, but now allowing white to play something like rook a d1 to pin the bishop and the queen, creating some annoying things. Instead, here, however, Gukesh played a move that he missed the opportunity with rook a d1, and instead he played f4. I can understand that he wants to rip open the king side because black's king is really open. There are no pawns in front of it, and it's actually really reasonable when these kind of situations happen. You're up material, like you're up a lot of pawns, like you sacrifice your pieces for the pawns in front of your opponent's king, and now you just want to keep up opening more files, more diagonals, to slide your pieces into the game to checkmate your opponent's king. But here, f4 basically doesn't work, because here first, black goes bishop e6. Now you basically cannot take, because you lose the queen on d2, that is for sure. But if you don't do anything here, as played in the game, for example, you play knight d5, moving away with the queen also makes sense, queen e1 probably, but then there's also knight d4, and there's now knight c2. Well, actually not knight c2. Knight c2 is not best, but you can actually go knight g4 first, like controlling some of the squares, and then go knight c2 on the next move. But here instead, knight d5 was played, which is more aggressive, creating more counterplay. Here, the eval bar says that black is clearly better here. Like, black clearly has an advantage, but for white is not losing. Like, white still has plenty of counterplay to create trouble. And here, knight b4 was played. Still, the knight and the queen are pinned, so the knight can't really move unless you take on f6, because that is check. But I'm pretty sure that white doesn't really want to do that. And in the game, f takes e5 was played first. And here, knight g4. Okay, this is a really fine move. Rook a d1. And here, as we can see, white is threatening to go knight f6 on the next move. And if you don't do anything, let's say just play a random move like a6, knight f6 check, you have to take, but then you lose the queen. And after here, now white is up. It's just up way too much material and about to up more material. This is nothing that should be allowed. This is something that should not be allowed. And here, Giri played king h8, a very nice move because, running away from knight f6, that's it. And in the game, king h1 was played. Now this is a move that is considered as a blunder here by chess.com. But, already at this point of the game, white is under a lot of pressure because black is throwing all of the minor pieces towards his king. And also there are some annoying checks on this diagonal that black has. So after king h8 here, if white just makes a random move like a3, there's now rook c2 even. So here, rook c2 is a threat, but I guess this is a move that white just simply missed. If he had seen that rook c2 is coming, probably he'll play something like queen f4 to run away, also create some tricky ideas like knight f6 coming up, and also use the rook to attack the queen. Queen f4 is the best move here, but however, Gukesh didn't play it, and instead he played king h1, running away from this diagonal, thinking that it is safe, but it turns out that after rook c2, he is not safe, not even close to safe. And after queen f4, knight takes d5, queen f3, it's obvious that you cannot take on d5 back, because after bishop d5, this is game over. You cannot take on d5, because there's rook h2 and bishop c5. This is over. And if you take bishop d5, if you don't do anything, like you play rook takes d5, for example, here black can even take with queen takes d5, and the same thing will just simply happen, bishop c5. And you'll have to give back all of your pieces that you have, like rook f2, but then like there's bishop f2. This is all over. King f1, knight e3 you'll have to take, and black is up a rook. So here, back into the game, Gukesh not only has a really bad position, but also is under time pressure. He only has 38 seconds left on the clock, where Giri still has 10 minutes left. So it looks like Giri is in a very comfortable situation. He has a winning position, also 10 minutes time advantage. It looks like everything is just leaning towards Giri, and Gukesh is simply lost. But still, he keeps on fighting, and he played queen f3 first. Now he is threatening to take on d5, and here queen b6 was played. Now queen b6 is the start of disaster because there's e takes d5 basically, but here what black should have done instead is actually just to take on g2, and then after queen takes g2, there's knight g e3. You see this knight is forking 3 major pieces that white has, and white can't do anything. And if you take with the king, well, basically the same thing happens. Well, here actually you can use knight d3 now because it's with check. And then if you take, well, basically you cannot take because it's again with check. Then after knight d3, king h1, oops, like here we have king h1, for example. There's now knight d1. If you take, well, if you take here, there's even here, and knight f2, winning the queen. So this is full of plenty of tactics, but it's kind of surprising that Giri didn't find this rook g2 move and instead played queen b6 after a 6-minute long think. But sometimes, like you're under time pressure or after playing a really long game for hours and hours, sometimes your brain could get you couldn't really get the right ideas, get the ideas straight, and sometimes bad things just happen. Well, here after queen b6, Gukesh immediately played e takes d5, and suddenly he is back into the game. Well, here rook f2 was immediately played, and this is the only move that still keeps black better. And here, again, Gukesh found this only move queen d3, and then bishop b4. This is a mistake. Here, bishop f5 is the best move that still keeps black better, just allowing white to check, but then there's bishop g7. You don't even have to worry about e7 because you just simply take white queens, but then after here, if you take, there's now simply queen b2. This second rank is all full with black's pieces, and it's game over. So here, going back into the game, bishop f5 is the best move, but already at this point, black is not winning anymore. Bishop f5 with accurate play, white is gonna live on. And here, bishop f5 is not even a move that black might see. And if black doesn't play it, then white is the side who is starting to have chances. But I mean, queen b6 already after queen b6, which is a huge, huge mistake. Black is losing all of his winning possibilities. But still, in the game, lots of things did happen here. Bishop b4 first played, queen c1 back, bishop f5, queen g5. Now the queen is suddenly sliding into black's position, and there might be a perpetual check at some point. Here, queen g5, bishop f8, and here, Gukesh made a mistake. He played queen h4 check. Looks very logical, but then simply there's now, after queen h4, there's king g8, and after queen g5, bishop g7, there are no more checks, and black is winning once again. But here, instead of playing like king g8, which is a very easy move to see, well, here we can't really blame Anish Giri because he also only has 42 seconds left on the clock, but he played this bishop h6 move. Now, this move is clearly a bad move because why? Because you just put yourself into a pin, and you're somehow this bishop needs to be defended by the knight, but the knight is also kind of overloaded, this knight is. And what if h3 at some point happens? So bishop h6 is a move that is kind of risky. And here, rook d e1 was first played. Now there are some sort of e6 ideas going on. It's a really, really messy position here. Queen b2 was played. And here, Gukesh made a mistake that is actually just simply losing. He only had this rook f2 move to save the position, knight f2, king g1. And this just turns out to be a miracle draw. And here, obviously, you cannot take with the queen because there's like rook f1. I mean, it's still a draw after queen c2, but then queen h5, white might be having some chances. You have to play bishop e4, but I mean, here probably still a draw because there's perpetual check, but both sides don't have enough time, and I think many mistakes will happen. And in the game here, Gukesh played this huge blunder, h3. h3 simply just blundering into bishop e4, which is found immediately by Anish Giri, a brilliant found, and black is just simply winning here once again. And after rook f2, knight takes f2, this is all completely fine. King g1 here. And I mean, both sides are just under like about 1 minute. They don't really know what's happening. They have to calculate really fast, and probably at this point they have already been thinking for a lot of time, playing for a lot of hours. And here Giri made this final mistake that simply just thrown this whole game away. Here he only has one move to play, and that move is winning for him. All of the other moves lead to loss for him. So it's either a win for Giri or a loss for Giri. The move that he is going to play next will decide the result of this game. And Giri here played not the winning move. The winning move will be, well, in the game he played queen b6. And as you can see by the eval bar, it's over. Because there's queen f6. White successfully gets the queens off the board. And now white is going to be up material. Here, the only move, the winning move, is to go knight g4. And here, basically, the computer suggests that white just simply takes on h6. Because if you take on e4, there's now queen f2 here, which is made in 2. And if you don't take on e4, if you go for something like, if you take on here, there's this, which is made in 1. This is basically just all over. And if you go check, there's just king g7, for example. No more effective checks, and it is all over. If Giri had more time, he definitely saw all of these, but under time pressure, also under pressure of the position, he played queen b6, and Gukesh, he played queen f6 immediately, successfully getting the queens off the board. And here after bishop g2, king takes g2. Of course, you don't take the knight because you're not giving black the bishop pair, and the bishop will take the d5 pawn, that is. But instead, you just take the bishop. This knight will need to move away, but then after knight e3, you just start pushing the pawn, knight c5, rook e5, knight d7, and here the final beautiful touch, rook e7, and Giri resigned. Even though they had just reached into the second time control, but this is just unplayable. This is just completely losing. And what a game this is. Giri was winning all the time. Like most of the time, it was he who is going to win. But then at the very last step, the very last touch, he didn't play knight g4, but instead played the move queen b6, throwing the game away. But, Gukesh, in the beginning, he didn't play really well, but he didn't give up either. And then he found a lot of good defensive moves, and in the end, managed to turn the tables and win the first round. What a game, what a win by Gukesh. Giri didn't play really bad, but at the end, under time pressure, anything can happen, so we don't blame him for that. But this is just a very nice game. We can learn a lot of things from this game. And hope you guys enjoyed this game as well as this video. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!